After a really exciting first week of NFL football, Bryce and I are here to recap what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start with the Thursday night game. And to be honest with you, really, really great game.
Yeah.
I looked at the game and was like, looking down at my phone going, damn, Peyton's only got 12 points.
You called me at half, and you said, how's the game going? And I said, honestly, it's pretty boring.
Yeah.
I said, there's not much going on. And ends up, Peyton Manning has a career day, throws for 7 touchdowns and over 400 yards passing.
Let's just put it this way, guys. He threw for 305 passing yards and 5 touchdowns in the second half.
I'd be happy with that from a whole game from Tony Romo.
Yeah, I bet you would. On the other end of the ball, actually, Flacco didn't do too bad for his first game back, especially after signing a big contract this season, this offseason. He did really well.
Pretty much what we can take away from that Baltimore-Denver game. Baltimore isn't as bad as they looked that game, and Denver is not as good as they looked that game. That's what I took away.
But the thing that I really need to look, or when I looked down and was looking at everything, Ray Rice only had 12 carries. Mm-hmm. Guys, that has to change in order for Baltimore to be successful.
Ray Rice is one of the only weapons that Joe Flacco has left over from that Super Bowl winning team on the offense, and he has to become a bigger part of it.
Final score, Denver 49, Baltimore 27. Moving on, Tennessee at Pittsburgh. What can you say? Okay, Pittsburgh's really, really bad, guys. They're floundering. They're not doing too well. And it turned out to start the game really decent, considering they got a safety on the first play of the game.
On top of Pittsburgh losing this game, they also lose their Pro Bowl center Marquise Pouncey for the year, and they lose one of their offseason pickups in LaRod Stevens-Howling. They did sign Jonathan Dwyer back, but it's one of those signings.
They also lost Foote.
They did. They lost Larry Foote, and those are 3 really big losses to a team that doesn't have a lot of depth and honestly doesn't have a lot of talent.
Absolutely. Final score: Tennessee 16, Pittsburgh 9. Arizona at St. Louis. One of the games that I actually picked wrong this week, and I actually only had 3 misses this past week. Arizona loses on a last-minute field goal. But it was just a really good game. We learned a few things from them. Arizona's actually got a decent offense, especially with Carson Palmer throwing to Larry Fitzgerald. That will be something to watch throughout the rest of the season.
Agreed.
St. Louis, on the other hand, shows that their defense really isn't that bad, especially anchored by James Laurinaitis up the middle and linebacker. This team is pretty good, and Peterson and Arizona is going to be good.
This game showed that both of these teams are not going to be pushovers like they almost kind of sort of were last year. Both teams can come up and smack you in the mouth on any given Sunday.
Absolutely. Final score 27-24. Seattle wins this one. St. Louis. Seattle at Carolina. Let's talk about Seattle real quick. One of the first times that Seattle crosses country in week 1 and actually pulls out a victory.
They do. I went with Carolina on this just because Carolina was at home and they were playing on the East Coast. And I like the home team, especially when they have to go to coast. I was wrong. Russell Wilson took his team there and pulled out a win against the Panthers team that was on fire last year. Didn't look like the same Panthers team we saw to close out the year last year. They looked like the Panthers team that started the year out last year. I believe Cam Newton only had 163 all-purpose yards, which is not what you want to see out of your franchise quarterback.
Yeah, and Russell Wilson actually had a decent first half, 93 passer rating, compared to his 131 passer rating in the second half. Pretty good. Final score, Seattle 12, Carolina 7. Minnesota at Detroit, something that I kept looking at over and over again just simply because Adrian Peterson was in the game. First play of the game, handoff, 78-yard touchdown run. And then all of a sudden, it just kept going backwards and backwards, his rushing yards. And he only ended up with 93 rushing yards.
I was going to say, it was only like 20 yards more than his first run. I was really surprised that I saw that 78-yard total, and I was like, Manny has a career day on Thursday. Why shouldn't AP have a career day on Sunday? But it didn't turn out that way.
Well, hold on. I mean, he did have over 100 yards, all-purpose yards. He did have 3 touchdowns.
That's a normal day at the office for that.
I mean, but on the other end of the ball, Detroit actually came out and played decent football. We do have to talk about a hit that Ndamukong Suh
$100,000.
$100,000. Don't you think that's a little bit ridiculous?
He's paid $11 million a year.
Fair enough.
He gets paid $11 million a year, and that hit was very dirty. It was outside of the tackle box. The play was well down the field. You hit an offensive lineman below the knees. Inside the tackle box, when the play is right there, it's fair game. Outside the tackle box, when the play is that far down the field, that's uncalled for. It's completely uncalled for.
Final score: Detroit 34, Minnesota 24. Tampa Bay at the Jets. This game and Matt's,
heartbreaker. I wasn't even a Tampa Bay fan. I bet on Tampa Bay. A heartbreaker.
Matt, I apologize, dude. You know, we talked about this game earlier.
I told you they weren't going to win.
It's really, really tough. I mean, first of all, the penalty. Let's talk about the penalty.
Yeah.
Now, the penalty, there's debate about it because
there's
simply,
a lot of debate about it. Yeah.
you know, he did hit him outside the when he was out of the bounds.
He did.
On the other end, he was a rushing quarterback, so he should be hit like any
Treated
other
as
rushing
a normal player. Yeah.
Yes.
And the hit was initiated while both players were in bounds. So it's one of those gray areas. It happened in the Green Bay San Francisco game. One of those gray areas. You have a penalty. You're not really sure which way it goes. You know, for me, I put it on Facebook. I put it on our account that Tampa Bay kind of got screwed in this. And I know a lot of people were saying, well, it didn't come down to one play. Well, it does. It does. At the end of the game, when one penalty cost your team the game, and it's the wrong call, they got screwed. I mean, if you say they didn't, that's kind of like saying Green Bay didn't get screwed last year when they lost that game.
On the other end of the ball, hearing what Matt actually talked about his team in Tampa Bay, he's saying it was probably one of the sloppiest games he's seen Tampa Bay play in a few years. So, final score is New York Jets 18, the Buccaneers 17. Tough loss. Kansas City whips up on Jacksonville 28-2.
One bright spot for Jacksonville is Blaine Gabbert got hurt and he won't be playing this week.
And Chad Henne is a joke. On the other end, Andy Reid actually picks up his first win as a Kansas City Chief.
Looks like could be a potent. Now, granted, they were playing the high school, team, the Jacksonville Jaguars, but they look like it could be a pretty potent team.
New Orleans actually comes out with Rob Ryan's defense and actually makes a really, really good stand against Atlanta. First and goal on the 5-yard line, if I remember correctly, late in the game. This is Matt Ryan's bread and butter, and Rob Ryan
had no protection on that play.
No,
I mean it was like a revolving door. The whole offensive line. I don't know what the Atlanta offensive line is this year. They had some plays Sunday. They just looked terrific. The offensive line looked amazing, one of the best in the NFL. And then they had some where they just looked like revolving doors. The offensive line's almost like the Atlanta Braves of the NFL. They're streaky, and you have no idea what you're going to get. Drive after drive. It's complete crapshoot.
Final score: New Orleans 23, Atlanta 17. Cincinnati at Chicago. And this is the game that I actually called Chicago to win.
Good call.
I really thought that Mark Trestman coming in with a new offense, with Jay Cutler coming in, he's more of a quarterback coach, which is a good thing for Cutler considering he needs some kind of stability. Because Lovie Smith was the defensive coach. Their defense actually held up. Played a really good game against.
That was a very good game. This is one of those.
Of course, they couldn't stop AJ Green. AJ Green's just a beast.
Could you say this is a possible Super Bowl matchup? Do you see?
No.
You don't think so?
No.
Right.
I don't think I don't think Chicago's got enough wins in them to be in the Super Bowl.
Okay, fair enough.
24-21 is the final score. Chicago beats Cincinnati. New England pulls out a victory in Buffalo. I mean, this game.
I switched on this game, and this was kind of like the San Diego-Houston game. I was watching it at halftime, third quarter. I said, New England's got it. They got it. I believe Tom Brady was 22-2 against Buffalo going into this game. I saw the score. I flipped it off. I went to the Tennessee-Pittsburgh game because it was such a good game. Tennessee-Pittsburgh game gets over. I flip back over. There we are. Right in the middle of it. I mean, Buffalo's right there. They're on the cusp of taking the game, and I'm standing there sweating like, what's going on?
Things to take away from this: EJ Manuel has actually played a really good game in this.
He put him in a position to win.
Yeah, he's going to be good. New England actually pulls out 23-21 final score. Oakland and Indy. Terrell Pryor actually had a game of his life. He's actually leading the NFL right now in rushing. But
yards, I believe.
Indianapolis, the leading QBR player right now, Andrew Luck, pulls it out. It's 21-17 final score Indy.
Yep.
Miami at Cleveland. This was a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Miami actually won 23-10.
Ryan Tannehill looked pretty good. Miami's going to be a pretty good team this year. There's a lot of the thing about the NFL this year is there's only really 2 teams in the NFL you can look at and say that they're not on the level to compete with all the other teams, and it's Oakland and Jacksonville for me.
Yeah. Green Bay at San Francisco, great game, and
Terrific.
unfortunately Daniel's not here to actually join us and talk about this game. But San Francisco gets a big win against Green Bay. I mean, of course, Colin Kaepernick still hasn't lost to Green Bay.
Terrific.
Yeah,
Colin Kaepernick looked terrific.
He threw for over 400 yards. Anquan Bolden, 208 yards. Have a game. I mean, sorry.
He was on my bench. On my bench.
34-28 final score. San Francisco beats Green Bay.
I was watching that game.
The
crying.
Sunday night game, Dallas at New York Giants. Big win for Bryce's
defense looked
Cowboys.
terrific. Defense absolutely looked terrific, and I am thrilled about that. Offense looked like it did the past few years, out of sync, and nobody knows what's going on. Receivers can't communicate with Tony Romo. I'm used to that.
If the offense can find some kind of stability, some kind of consistency,
Have you
this team
seen,
could be.
Have you seen any?
I'm saying if
any
they
games?
can.
Oh no.
If they can, this team would be scary.
I agree. It's not going to happen. I've watched Tony Romo. I've seen every single game Tony Romo's ever played, and it ain't going to happen.
Guess what?
What?
You guys are tied with Philadelphia for the division lead right now. Speaking of Philadelphia,
They are a scary good team.
guys,
You know, I heard Chip Kelly in the offseason talk about this offense, and I heard everybody hype it up, and I said, it's not going to make a difference. When you have
you actually told me this last
I
night. You were
did.
like, there's no way that Chip Kelly's offense does anything tonight. It's going to be the first game. They're going to be so inconsistent. Nothing.
I was dead wrong, 100%, completely wrong. This is just week 1 though, so I'm taking it with a grain of salt. But I was dead wrong.
Now,
I was
granted,
completely wrong.
it was 33-7 at halftime.
Yeah, and they weren't playing against a scrub defense. Washington defense last year was extremely good.
Final score ends up being 33-27. RG3 has a much better half in the second half than he did first.
And
He looked like he was really rusty. Of course,
Eagles-
he didn't play anything in the preseason.
And the Eagles' offense did look like they were slowing down a bit in the second half. They had a big lead, so maybe that was designed. But that fast-paced offense, it has to take something out of you.
Yeah. And they were actually talking about it today on Sports Talk Radio, how the offensive line was on.
Oh, I couldn't. There's no. I mean, I played offensive line in high school. There's no way. There's no way I could have done something like
Final
that.
score, Philadelphia 33, Washington 27. Last game of the week,
Do we have to
the
talk
game
about this
that
game?
you did not want to talk about. You said, oh, San Diego's going to beat them. Just wait. What was the final, or the halftime score?
It'd be 28-7.
What was the final score?
Actually, halfway through the third quarter, it was 28-7. I went to sleep. They had a 21-point lead at home with only a quarter and a half to play, and they blew it like they always do.
Matt Schaub had a decent second half, like a lot of quarterbacks are. They look like they're shaking off the rust of the preseason, shaking off the rust of the offseason, and going, okay, I'm ready now.
Unfortunately,
and then
Phillip Rivers shook off the rust in the second half.
Owen Daniels had a really good game. He had 2 touchdowns, over 50 yards receiving. He was really outstanding.
Andre Johnson becomes the sole leader of most games in a career with 10 or more receptions.
That's incredible. But that's it for our Week 1 recap. Tune in later. We should be back for our Week 2 preview.
We will actually be back for our Week 2 preview in a matter of about a minute and a half.
Come on back. We'll talk to you guys later.